Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest AMA community call. This topic is B2 verification, a new verification, and Yazdani is going to share a presentation with us, and Maddie's here to answer questions. So let's go to Yazdani right now.
Okay, hello to everyone. My internet connection is unstable, so I decided to turn off my camera, and sorry for that. I would like to give you a brief introduction to Bitu, and then we can go for your questions. As you know, we started BrightID with an idea to verify users based on some graph analysis based methods. But after doing some researches, we realized that it's not possible to use such verification methods unless we have a graph of significant number of users. So we decided to verify users based on connection parties to grow and reach that appropriate graph. With this approach, we were able to be resistant to large scale attacks. Although we all know that one person can participate in different connection parties and verify multiple accounts. So this method is not safe against the small scale attacks. Now, after more than 1 year of using connection parties to verifying users, we have more than 30,000 active users, and we can start to use other verification methods. And as you know, the first one is Bitu. Well, let's move to the explanation of Bitu. Bitu is a graph analysis based method, and it verifies users based on their location in the graph. It means that Bitu verifies those users who are inside the main regions of the graph, and it recognizes those who are outside the borders of these regions as civil accounts. So for further explanation, let me show you the graph. Let me share my screen, and I hope my internet connection can handle it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we are looking at it right now.
Okay. This is BrightID graph, and it's accessible to everyone. And you can log in with your Explorer code and your password, and you can find them in the BrightID application. You can use our Gitbook to see how our Explorer works. I will paste the link in the chat. Let me paste the link.
Oh, I got the Explorer link, not the Gitbook.
Yeah. Okay. So here you can see the three main regions of the graph. This is the smaller regions, this region and the other one. The users who are inside these regions are verified in Bitu. First of all, I have to say that, as you know, there are three connection levels in BrightID: suspicious, just met, and already known. And this graph is drawn only based on already known connections. And the other two connection levels have no role in drawing the graph. So those users who want to get this verification, I mean Bitu, need to make already known connections with their friends and family who are already placed in these main regions. Here we have an important point. Bitu is based on the fact that civil accounts cannot make a significant number of connections with honest users, and they can only make connections with each other as fake accounts and fake users. That is why they get pushed away from the main region of the graph to the surrounding districts. Based on this fact, users should note that they must not and they must never make an already known connection with someone they don't know, because that person may be a civil account and maybe an attacker and making an already known connection with that person will cause them to be pushed away from the main region of the graph and may cause them to be unverified in B2 verification. Another point is that B2 is designed to be scalable. There's no seed or highly trusted nodes in B2. All nodes have equal power and can verify others as long as they remain in the main regions of the graph. Users can get verified in B2 easily by making a single connection with one. Users can get verified in B2 easily by making a single connection with one of the users in the main region. And if a user in the main region of the graph want to create some fake accounts and verify them by making connections with them, the fake accounts get pushed away from the main region, and even the attacker will get unverified. This prevents large-scale civil attacks and provides security to the graph. Now, the question is, how does B2 deal with small-scale attacks? B2 assign a score to users, and they can get one positive point by making an already known connection to friends or family who are verified in B2, who are already verified in B2. It also penalizes users that make already known connections to a stranger. Like if you make an already known connection with someone who selects you as suspicious, you will get 5 negative points. You will also get 1 negative point if one of your friends or family members who you have an already known connection with get penalized. Let me give you an example. Consider that like Raitesan and I set each other as already known. In this case, if Raitesan makes an already known connection with someone and that person selects Raitesan as suspicious, Raitesan gets 5 negative points and I get 1 negative point too. This indirect penalization encourages users to take care of their friends and family's activity and connections. Like in the previous example, I asked Raitesan not to select that third person as already known. And if he doesn't do that, I will select Raitesan as just met or suspicious, so I don't get a negative score. Another point is in B2, different apps may require different scores to consider users as verified. So when an application asks for a higher B2 score, it means that the application is much more secure. This makes it too hard for civil accounts to make enough connections without getting out of the main regions. For example, let's say that rabbit hole requires only B2 level 1, which means you need just one already known connection to use rabbit hole. In this case, if an attacker has strong connections to the main region, they can verify, like for example, 10 other fake accounts without the risk of getting out of the main region. But if rabbit hole requires B2 level 10, that attacker has 2 options. The first one is to connect the fake accounts to honest users. And we know that honest users don't make connections with the fake account and they report these accounts. The second option is to connect these fake accounts to each other. That causes all these 10 accounts to get pushed away from the main region of the graph and get unverified. So let's get back to the BrightID Explorer, and I want to show you some attacks part of the graph that are unverified in B2. Let's see this part that I think these accounts are like attackers, and the other part that I found is this part that I think the attacker is an artist also. Yeah. And we have some parts in BrightID Explorer that we don't we are not sure whether they are attackers or civil accounts or not. But if they're not attackers, they can easily make some connections to the main regions and come inside the main regions. And if they are attackers and civils, like they can't do anything and they pushed away from the graph. So that was my short and brief presentation about Bitu, and now we can go for your question, and Mehdi and I are here to answer your questions.
I have a question already. So you mentioned that there's no pre-trusted users or seeds. That's what we call seeds in the meets connection verification. There's something called seeds, which are basically members of communities that are pre-trusted to help with verification. So my question then is, how do you but you also talked about how important it is to be connected to the main part of the graph. So how do you know what the main part of the graph is?
Can I answer, Yazdani?
Yes, please do.
Yes, of course.
When we started to check if we can have a verification based on the presentation of the graph that we have using the BrightID Explorer, the first challenge was that we were seeing some big regions in the graph, and the first challenge was that if we can trust these regions to be to not be consistent completely with attackers and their civils. How we checked if we can trust these main regions was we had two different ways. One of the ways could be if we have some seeds in those regions, but unfortunately all the seeds that we had was placed in a small section in the left hand of the graph that you see. The other way that we started thinking about was that we saw that our different stars and different seeds verified lots of the users in the BrightID meets in those three regions. So we see lots of users are verified with each of our star and our seeds. We could not imagine that all of these users that we meet them in the BrightID meets, all of them are attackers and civils. So we trusted these main regions to be real because different stars that we had make just met connections with people in those regions.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it's using the result of the historical results of meets. So Bitu is actually using the meets verification in some way to identify the main regions of the graph. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. We trusted the result of what our stars and our seeds did in the BrightID meets to detect the main and trust the regions of the graph.
Yeah,
Do you
I
continue,
really like that. That's good. That's really good.
Marty, are you still using that data like now and in the future, or was it like you used it at one point in time and now it's not used anymore?
It strongly depends on how things go forward. I am not sure. To be honest, in those three regions, the left region is the core BrightID team and the people around us in the BrightID team. the middle region is from China users, and the right region is consisted consists of users from whole world other than China and the core team around us. It really depends that how our graph start to grow. And what we saw that the people from all around the world, from different countries, are strongly connected together in the right region. Make me that think we might be able to have a single trustworthy, very dense and connected part in the future, that despite the fact that users come from different places, they all get connected in a dense way to that region. If such a thing happen, it will be very good, and we can be sure that we can simply consider any region out of that region as a not trusted region, and ask users to get connected to that single lens part. But we do not know, maybe in future the growth of the BrightID graph become in sparse regions, and that we need to get in touch and find some seeds on or some connection in those big regions. Big different regions will be created, maybe tens of regions, and we need to find someone in those regions, or some community in those regions, or use current star and meet based connection to ensure that those regions are not completely created by civil accounts. This is one other possibility. So I think your answer is not clear now, and it depends to the BrightID growth, and we should see what happens in the future. But in the current state, I am almost sure that we can trust the nodes in these three regions, and this region can be based off adding tens of thousands new users to the BrightID.
We have a very interesting question from David McNeil. Would you like me to read that for you, David, or did you want to get on the mic and say it yourself? Okay, I'm just going to read it. It says, I would like to ask whether time plays any role. What if I don't make a new connection for a year? Will I be pushed outside the main region of the graph? Will my Bitu level downgrade slowly? Did you understand that question, Maddie?
No, sorry.
Okay, let me put it in another way. So let's say someone's already has a high level B2 verification. Let's say they have a B2 verification level of 20, and they don't make any new connections for a year, which I actually, in considering the growth of BrightID, I find that somewhat unlikely, because I think that if someone's already verified, people are going to be seeking them out just because of the way B2 works. People are going to be looking for that person to help them get verified. So I find it somewhat unlikely that they won't be making any connections for a year, but let's say they don't. Let's say that they already know 5 people that are already B2 verified. They make those connections, they get a good B2 level, and then they just stop because maybe no one needs to connect to them, and they don't need to connect to anybody else. Will their B2 level get worse over time? Did that make sense?
So if the question is that why someone should make connections with their friends and families while they are already B2 verified,
Right. That's part of it. Yeah.
so I think the main region that I make already known connections with my friends and family is that they are my friends and they are my family, and I want to help them to get verified. So even if I am verified and my friends come to me to make connection with me, I will make connections with them to help them getting verified.
Yeah, and then the second part of the question is, let's say, this is just theoretical. This may not happen, but let's say that someone decides, okay, I'm not, just not going to connect anyone. Well, let's say, well, here's an example. Let's say someone goes away. Maybe they go on a 6-month long retreat into the mountains or something. They just go away from society and they're not, they turn off their internet for 6 months and don't make any connections. Would that hurt their B2 score if someone did that? If they already have a good B2 score and they just go away for 6 months, will that hurt their score?
Not only your connection. So if you do not make any connection and you wait for 3 months or 6 months, you might get out of the main regions of the graph, not because you did not make any connection, but your friends that had was B2 verified and connected you to the main region of the graph, they may have some connection and some treatments if they start making connections and you are connected to them, when they are pushing out from the main region of the graph, and they push you with them to the out of main regions of the graph, and you might get unverified if you are only connected to some attackers, for example. So it's not only about you, but it's about your connections too.
Yeah, I can imagine how that might happen. That if nothing else, I can imagine a situation where, let's say that you get a B2 level of 10, and so do your friends, and your friends keep making new connections because they keep bringing more friends in, and those friends make more connections, and you just go away for 6 months and don't do anything. Maybe their B2 level would go up to 20 and yours would, if nothing else, just stay at 10, and maybe the apps would raise the required level and you would get left behind. So almost like B2 level inflation, and you would miss out on it or something like that.
I would like to add something that may relate it like to this question. I think we are certainly going to improve our score mechanism in B2. Now the penalization is just for suspicious connection level, but I think like in the future we are having we are going to penalize users like for just met connection levels, and all the time the scoring mechanism of B2 like is going to improve and getting better.
So I have a question. So I look at some of the spots on the graph, and I see things that appear to be an attack. Like I found a particular BrightID, and it actually has 32 B2 links, but comes up with a score of 0. Like I agree. I don't know. Maybe we need to look up this actual BrightID and tell me what's happening here. Like I clearly intuit that, yeah, that sure looks like an attack. It's got all these recovery connections that are outside the graph. It's sending. But why is the score? So yeah, it's got 32 B2 links, a score of 0, and a temp score of 28. I just want to know what's actually going on under the hood. If we could look at one.
This newly added attribute named temp score shows that you have how many B2 verified user are you connected to. We have two different things one of them is that your node in the BrightID graph is located in the main regions of the graph. This is what that is required to make you B2 verified. After you are B2 verified, you need we start counting how many connections you have with the other people that are verified in the B2 verification. This is the second step. If your node is not located in the main region of the graph, you are not B2 verified, and your B2 score will be 0. You should try to be included in the main region. This is the main thing that B2 is relied on. B2 is relied the fact that if attackers cannot keep attacking to the network and keep their node inside the main regions. We are not sure that everyone outside the main regions are attackers, but we are almost sure that attackers cannot keep their node inside the main regions of the graph. So the score is only after it's only important after your node is included in the main regions of the graph. Do you get what I mean here?
Yeah, it makes
Sounds
sense to me. I can, like, that's how I've always thought about it. I know B2 adds the and this is something that I hope we can talk about more, is the penalties, but not thinking about the penalties for a minute. You kind of put people into two buckets: people that are verified and people that you don't know. They might be Sybils, they might be honest users that still have some work to do. And the reason why verification succeeds eventually is because those people have a way to become verified, whereas Sybils don't. So in the long run, they will get verified. But let's talk about the penalties, and because Yazdani mentioned that there's also going to be penalties for like mismatched connections. So let's say that I choose someone to be already known and they choose me to be just met, and it doesn't agree. So that's when something like that happens, that can cause a penalty. And also the penalties go from it's not just the people, it's not just that initial person, but also the people they connect to kind of get a smaller penalty just for being connected to that person that got a penalty. Does that maybe you could talk about that design choice, and did I get it right, or am I missing anything about how the penalties work?
Sorry, before continuing to talk about
Oh, sure,
penalties,
yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was able to explain why some of the users have Tempest scores and have B2
Sure, go ahead.
are connections with B2 verified users without having any penalty, but they are not verified. Because the first condition to get verified in BrightID is to be included in the main regions of the graph. You can have you might have no penalization. You have lots of connections with the B2 verified users, but you pushed out of the you are pushed out of the main regions of the graph, and you will not get verified in B2 because you probably have many connections with not B2 verified users, and those lots of connections pushed you out of the main regions, although you have for example 5 or 10 or even 20 connections with B2 verified users without even having any penalization. So having connections with B2 verified users is not enough if you have lots of connections with the users that are not B2 verified. And if anyone has such a problem, log into Explorer, he can easily find out why he was pushed out of the main regions of the graph. And if it's not an attack, these are not civil accounts, and he already has, for example, 20 friends in that are B2 verified, he can have help of his friends and introduce other friends that are not B2 verified to their friend and make them connected together. So those lots of users that were not B2 verified, all of them will get verified with the user himself. So the first condition to make verified in B2 is have the pattern for connections with B2 verified users that make you be included in the main region of the graph.
Right. And it
About
sounds like the solution, one of the solutions for looking more honest is to make sure that your friends that you're helping, that they make more connections than just to you, because if they're not making enough connections, that can make you look bad. So you might have to do some more work with your friends and help them to make more connections.
So I've made progress in my understanding, but I'm still confused what drives that first condition of are you included in the main graph?
Are you asking about the technical routine that we specify which users are included and which users are not included?
Yeah, I'm looking for the non-technical version of the technical answer.
We are after creating a DAO, just like the seed DAO, to select the main regions of the graph and select. In fact, we are manually doing this with Mohsen in past
Got it. Okay.
releases.
So right now, you guys are just like making us a circle and saying, however it is you determine, this is what we're calling the main region. And how you define that main region will change over time and adapt. Is that accurate?
Yes, part of that is defining the main region. Part of that is that if it's the main region and if it's a trusted region, how close should someone be to that region and to be considered to be inside the region, and if someone, how far should someone be from the main region to be considered as a not verified user. This can be automated with some algorithmic ways that consider the number of users and the number of users that is out and the number of links that they have with the main region. They can we call it in the programming concept as I think the minimum cut. How many users will be cut off from the graph if, for example, with 3 cuts or with 10 cuts. If you have a region with, for example, 200 users beside your main region, and they had maybe 10 cuts, 10 edges, 10 edges to the main region, maybe 10 edges are not enough to keep that 200 users to be considered as a main region of the graph. But now we are manually doing this, and we use the tools that we have in the Explorer to draw a line that define the border of each main region. We are doing this manually now, but in the near future, we apply some algorithmic ways that if this region is selected to be trusted, which users are considered to be inside this region or should not be considered to be inside this region will be selected using a simple and well-known algorithm. But currently we are applying this manually.
Thanks.
About the
If it-
question that
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, now maybe we can go back and talk about penalties and how they propagate.
You unmuted Victor Navarro if you were talking.
Oh, did you have a question too, Victor? Go ahead. Oh, okay, he's got audio problems, so why don't we answer this question and maybe Victor will have the next question. So did you want to explain a little bit about how penalties work? Maybe a little more detail.
Uh,
When will we start using just met as and not just suspicious as a penalty, or is that a plan to do that? And also, how do these penalties propagate?
uh, mm, to be honest, uh, we do not have any clear plan about penalization, and our road in future strongly depends on our feedback from the user's behavior. We started with a simple penalization routine just because we wanted to have a clear clear answer to the users that ask us why we should not make connections with anyone that we meet. Why users should not meet already known connections to everyone? Why our graph? What makes our users to do not make our graph completely connected between honest and strangers and unhonest user and attackers. The first initial penalization routine that we defined was a try to answer this question. So if you make already known connection to someone that you do not know, this might result in getting penalized, and this reduce your Bitu score. This was an initial step, and we should carefully monitor the growth of the graph and our users treatment and our user understanding to update this mechanism. We are not sure about what the future will be, but as I told, it strongly depends on the user's behavior in the future.
Great. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential with to see the behavior that comes in from the users, and I like that. I like the approach. Just I kind of like the wait and see approach. We have start simple and then wait and see what users do. I like that.
And the most important thing that we should be careful about is to encourage users to make as much as already known connections with their friends and family, and strongly prevent them from making already known connection to someone that they do not know. If we will be successful in encouraging users to do these two things, detecting sibils from honest users will be very simple. But if we fail in encouraging users to prevent making already known connections to strangers, there will be no algorithmic way to detect sibils based on the social graph analysis.
Exactly. So let's talk about how the user can tell if they've made a mistake. So let's say there's a sybil that's been marked as suspicious, and then the user, maybe through some sort of phishing-like attack or something like that, or they make a connection to that Sybil with already known. And how do they get feedback about their mistake? How do they see that they're getting penalized for that?
Currently, in the mobile client, we have a B2 verification screen that you can open either from the achievements list or from by tapping the B2 sticker under the name for verified users, and there we listed the users that you get penalized because having already known connections with them. Some of them, if they directly reported you or make a suspicious connection with you, you can see that as a direct report. Or if you have some friends that are reported, you get a single one negative score from them. You can also see them in that screen. One good thing is that if you have a friend that had a wrong report, I experienced such a thing in between my friends. I got one negative score from because one of my already known connections was reported. I checked which of my friends reported that the reporter was also one of my friends, and I could see his name in that screen. So I called him and asked him why he reported that connection as connection, and he forgot. He in fact forgot who was the owner of that account because selecting a bad picture and bad name for the account. And when I told him who was that account belonging to, he updated the level to the already known, and this resulted in the that negative score was removed from my account. Users, if in this indirect impact, in this indirect reports and indirect negative scores can be removed if you have friends that you can check together who was reported, who reported them, and can resolve the issue currently based on current implementation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I have 556 connections. I have a lot of connections, and so I guess what you said is really important about making sure that people can remember who you are when you're making a connection with them. There's no strict requirements of how you have to do that, but you want to probably make a picture and a name that reminds the person who you are, so they don't go through and mark you as suspicious. And then I like that I can see which of my friends are suspicious, and that way. So I'll just tell you how I'm going to approach this. Right now, I don't have anyone who's suspicious. I checked just now in B2. I don't have any friends. But if I did, if one of my friends did show up as suspicious, first I would look at the name and picture and say, okay, is this someone I know? If I don't know, because maybe they put a weird name in a weird picture and I just don't remember who it is, then I'll probably just remove the connection, and that will help me personally and may hurt that person more, but help me. So I'll just remove that connection. But if it's someone who I know who it is, then what I'll do is I'll go to that person and I'll say, look, you're having some problems. You connected to someone that is suspicious. You might want to look at that connection and fix it. And so I'm going to try to help that person. If I know who it is and I can contact them, I'm going to try to help them. If not, I will remove the connection. Does that seem like a good approach, Madi?
Yes, and in my case, the reporter, I already know the reporter too. So I called the reporter and told him about that specific connection that he chose as suspicious. And he changed the level, and the problem was resolved. This, in fact, apply a social care into the BrightID network, that friends get notified and get a single negative score if their friends and family are reported by others.
Yeah, so what's the best thing to do if I want to change an already known connection? Let's say that I decided I made a mistake and it's hurting me and other people around me and I want to get rid of it. I can go to the connection details page and I can edit already known and I can change that, or I can report the person. Which of those options do you think is better to do?
If you remember that, if you remember that you had or you are sure that you made that connection in some parties, or he was someone that you just met, the best, I think, solution is to reduce the level to the just met, not the
Okay.
suspicious. Suspicious reported should only be selected when you are feeling that someone is attacking the network or making duplicate accounts. So the best level to be chosen, if you cannot remember someone, is to reduce the level to the just met.
Good. So if I want to just help myself and stop getting penalized, I can just change it from already known to just met. But if I think that this is an attacker, let's say that I remember, oh yeah, I clicked on some weird link on some website and that's how I generated this connection, then I or some weird person sent me a connection request on Discord and for some reason I made a mistake and connected with them, then I can report that as suspicious.
I have the same question as Han, like as the question as Han. Why isn't it possible to like remove a connection in BrightID?
I think we want to, so we used to be able to do that, but then we had problems because undoing that, it can be tricky. And so what we do now is you can just downgrade, like we just talked about, you downgrade the connection. So you can resolve all the problems you're having just by downgrading to, like if you made a mistake, if it was a total mistake to make that connection, you should not have connected that person. You think it's an attacker, change it to suspicious. If it's someone that maybe you shouldn't have, you do know who that person is, or you're not sure if they're attacker, you just downgrade it to just met. I think that's the right approach. Would you have anything to add to that, Maddie?
No, I want, maybe it's soon yet, but if you have a friend, that is reported, you can have two different approaches. One approach is that he's already your friend. One approach is that you reduce the level to just met, to prevent getting penalized from that friend. But if he's really your friend, the better and the right solution is to check why that your friend is penalized. Maybe someone wrongly reported him, and you and other friends that person has can help him be verified and get verified, and not be removed from the network and lose the verification, by keeping your renowned connection, and also helping him to resolve that report issue. So reducing the level to just met is only for the user that you do not know. You should never make a known connection with those users. But if they are you already know them and you are friends, or they are your family, if you get one or maybe two negative scores from that user, and you are sure that he's treating correctly in the BrightID network, there is no reason to reduce the level of your connection with those friends.
Right. And so, yeah, so I'm seeing some questions about removing connections. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see how people are able to deal with this. Nico made an interesting suggestion that if they have the intuition that they want to remove a connection, maybe we can just have that change the level to just met if you remove a connection. But anyways, and I think one thing that we just need to make sure everybody knows is that you can only be penalized if you make an already known connection incorrectly. If you're making just met connections, it's not going to penalize you. So you don't have to worry about that. The ones you need to be really careful about are your already known connections. You need to make those carefully. So Han asked, can I be penalized for making a just met connection to somebody incorrectly? And the answer is no. Okay, so yeah. So Carlos is saying that we have a few more minutes. Maybe one more question if anybody has one. Victor has a question. We still can't hear. Do you want to type out your question?
Yeah.
Maybe type that out.
Ahora vamos a retrasar la reunión en español 5 minutos.
Yeah, okay, so he's saying it's delayed for 5 minutes. Okay, how should we call the verification? You mean how do we pronounce it? Bitu? Oh, how did it get that name? The one we were using? So the name is Bitu. We're using meets. So if you see something on your phone that says meets, that means you have the meets verification from going to a connection party. Then yes, meets is the name. That's right. So let's let everybody know that when they come to a connection party, say you're going to get the meets verification from this. And yes, exactly. We need to explain that in connection parties, that what you will be getting from the connection party is called meets. So right now it looks like this, although we're changing the I'll show you on my screen what it looks like, although we're changing this. But you can see there's these stickers here, meets, B2, and seed right now. Those are showing you about your different verifications. If you go to a connection party, you'll get meets. If you do the B2 things that we talked about, you'll get B2 verification. Great question. Any others?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Sure.
So I don't know any of you. I actually know Victor because I did a meets with him. But how would I go about getting Bitu verification?
Yeah, I would say that start with the communities. I think some of the best communities right now have to do with the apps. So maybe some of the apps that you are using with BrightID have some people that you know that are already using those apps. So that would be a good place to check. I think in the future we've been talking recently about adding ways to find which of your friends are already using BrightID. So before we kind of shied away from that in the past because of privacy issues, we don't want to have like a public thing that maps everyone's BrightID to their name and profile or something like that. So it can't be like a general public thing, but we've been thinking about ways to, while still preserving your privacy, for people to assert to each other without sharing their BrightID identifier, to share the fact with each other. And it doesn't need to be provable. It just needs to be like I'm saying that I'm a BrightID user. And I think that's the key there is people can kind of like make this self-assertion, and it's not like apps are going to check it and use that to say that you're verified or not, but you just say I am a BrightID user, and then we have something that collects that. So like you could make that statement on Twitter and all your where friends could see it, and then the app could show you, okay, like here's all your Twitter friends that have said that they're using BrightID. Here's all your Facebook friends that said they were using BrightID. And then that helps you to find some friends. Maybe through Discord, we could do something similar, so that, because chances are there's probably somebody, just because you've been around in the crypto space, there's probably somebody that you already know that's using BrightID. You just might need some help finding that. So we're working on ways to do that.
Like on the, you've got a beautiful hash mask as your icon, and we're working with some folks in Mask DAO to get them in. And through the act of working with them, some of us may end up with already knowing connections to them, and then anyone in the hash mask community that knows them might. And knowing is an interesting thing in this new digital borderless world. For example, I recently tried to successfully use proof of humanity, and I was validating someone who I've worked with for hundreds of hours, but all online. I've never met them, and it said, have you met this person in person? Have you met this person physically? And I decided I know this person well enough. I've spent so much time with them. The fact that I have not actually met them physically, I know them well enough. So sort of just an example of how that virtual social circle can grow too.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the Hashmask DAO, we're all audio based, and we know each other quite well, but it doesn't translate too well into the real world, I suppose, like that. And then I did look at Proof of Humanity, and it is a different setup, but I really like the way BrightID is approaching this with kind of like, a graph-based verification system. So that's really great. But yeah, so that said, I mean, going into the graph, if we did with mass DAO like this DAO, we would probably make one or two already or just met connections, and then we would make a whole bunch of already known connections within us. So in the near term, that might split us off. However, in the long term, people will start to grow, and the graph will mature. So so it's pretty exciting technology anyway.
And
yeah, and I think something that's the key here is, unlike Proof of Humanity, we don't have these requirements like you must be facing the video, and like I mentioned before, you don't want someone to go through their connection list and especially if there's a penalty or a problem or something like that, and be like, who was that person? I don't even know who that was. So but if the way they know you is by your name, by your avatar, that's fine. Like that's enough to get BrightID verified. That's totally fine.
And I'll also say, for something like Mass DAO, the BrightID team is really interested in helping you guys. So you don't need to do it yourself. So have a party in your DAO where you're going to do this. A bunch of us will show up. I mean, I minted hash masks on day one. I think it's great. For many reasons, I'm supportive of you guys. And having folks that are at the center of the graph, like clearly in the region, showing up, even just marking you guys as just met, sort of helps pull things together. So there is a cold start problem, but we're super willing to jump in and help wherever there is a group of people that want to use this. So we can get you over the cold start problem by just putting in the work.
Yeah, sounds good. So we can aim for that at some point. That'd be great. Because I was looking at either doing our own node and verification system of some kind to get around meets, but this Bitu verification looks like it's really great. So I'm aiming at that. So hopefully it works out. And then we'll just have to politely ask Maddie to circle the Mass DAO as a verified region until we make enough connections.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys should run a node because it helps decentralize BrightID. But when I read it, like, I don't think you guys need to do a node because you want different analysis. If there's compelling different analysis to do, then the group of nodes should just do it. There shouldn't be a need for someone to run a node because they want to do a bespoke thing. Because if the bespoke thing's worth doing.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right in the long term. However, experimentation might be
Sure.
with verifications might be easier if you're running your own node. I would like to thank Maddie. He did a great job answering questions. I'd like to thank Yazdani for his presentation. Thank you both so much. Thank you for the excellent questions. I learned a lot. Thank you all for being here, and I think we'll close it down. Take care.